She was just a poor waitress, invisible to most. Until the day a billionaire walked into her diner and broke down in tears at the sight of her necklace. What was so special about that tiny piece of silver? Why did a woman worth millions fall to her knees in front of a girl who had nothing? This isn't a story about money. It's a story about memory, about blood, and about the kind of love that survives even when the world forgets. The diner smelled like overcooked bacon and burnt coffee, the kind of smell that clings to your clothes long after you leave. Mira didn't mind. She had worked here since she was 17, scraping tables and refilling mugs for minimum wage, and the occasional kind word. Now, 23, her hands bore the proof. Thin calluses, faint scars, the stains of a life lived in quiet endurance. But if anyone ever noticed anything about her, it was the necklace. It wasn't beautiful, not in the traditional sense. A silver chain, slightly tarnished, with a small locket no bigger than a quarter. The clasp was dented, the engraving nearly worn away. But Mira never took it off. Not while she worked, not while she slept. It was the only thing her mother had left her before she died in the hospital. Whispering words Mira was too young to understand. She only remembered the way her mother's trembling fingers had pressed the necklace into her palm. "This belonged to someone very special," she'd said, "and now it belongs to you." That was the last time she saw her. Now, the necklace hung quietly against her chest as she moved between tables, coffee pot in one hand, napkins in the other. She didn't talk much, didn't complain. The regulars called her the ghost girl because she was always there and yet somehow invisible. But the necklace, it always shimmered when the light hit just right. And one morning, that shimmer would change everything. It was a Tuesday. Rain tapped against the diner windows like fingers drumming an old piano. Mira was wiping down the booth in the far corner, lost in thought, when the door swung open and a gust of wind followed it in. Heads turned, not because of the weather, because of the woman who stepped through it. She wore red, not a faded red or a dusty burgundy, but the kind of red that made people stop talking. Her heels clicked with authority. A matching umbrella snapped closed beside her. Her earrings sparkled like frost. She didn't belong here, not in this sleepy highway-side town, not in this cracked vinyl booth and bottomless coffee kind of place. Her name was Sylvia Whitmore, and she was worth more money than everyone in the room combined. Mira didn't know that yet. To her, she was just another customer. "Table for one?" Mira asked politely. Sylvia looked at her for a moment longer than necessary. "Yes, somewhere quiet." Mira led her to the corner booth, the very one she had just cleaned, and placed a menu on the table. "Would you like coffee?" "Please," Sylvia said. "Black." Mira nodded and turned, and that's when it happened. Sylvia's eyes fell to the small silver locket glinting against Mira's collarbone. She froze. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. For a second, she looked like she had seen a ghost. Mira, sensing something, paused. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" Sylvia blinked. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "That necklace, where did you get it?" Mira instinctively touched it. "My mother gave it to me, before she passed." Sylvia's hand trembled. She clutched the edge of the table, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. "And your mother's name?" Mira hesitated. It always felt strange to say it out loud. The name belonged to a memory that never fully healed. "Lana," she said softly. "Lana Rivers." Sylvia dropped her teacup. The shatter silenced the diner, but not as much as the look on her face. Like she'd just heard the name of someone buried long ago, someone she had loved and lost. For a long, awkward moment, no one spoke. Sylvia sat motionless, her hand still hovering above the shattered teacup on the table. Mira instinctively bent down to clean the mess, but her eyes kept flickering up to the woman in red, this elegant stranger whose entire demeanor had shifted at the sound of a single name. "I'm so sorry," Mira murmured, dabbing at the table with a towel. "I'll get you another cup." But Sylvia shook her head slowly, still staring at the locket that dangled gently from Mira's neck. Her voice was barely audible. "Lana Rivers. Where did you say you were born?" Mira straightened, her hands slightly trembling now too. I don't know exactly. My mom passed when I was 7. I grew up in foster care for a while, then moved in with a family friend. She said my mother never talked about the past, just that she came from a place she'd never returned to." Mira offered a small smile. "Guess she meant it." Sylvia's throat tightened. "Do you know anything about your mother's family?" Mira shook her head. only that she never mentioned them, said the past was a locked box and we didn't need keys. She looked down at the locket. This is all I have. She told me it belonged to someone important once. I've never opened it. It doesn't open anymore. Sylvia swallowed hard, her hands clenched into fists in her lap. May I see it? Mira hesitated, instinctively curling her fingers around it. But something in Sylvia's eyes, something raw, broken, made her slowly lift the chain over her head and gently place the necklace into the woman's open palm. The moment Sylvia touched it, her composure cracked. She stared at the locket as if it had teeth, as if it might speak. Her eyes filled with tears. She ran her thumb over the tiny faded engraving on the back. To LWW, may you always find your way home. Her voice cracked. I gave this to her. Mira blinked. You gave this to my mother? Sylvia nodded slowly. She was my sister. She let out a breath that sounded like it had been held for decades. My baby sister, Lana Whitmore. She looked up, and now tears were slipping down her cheeks. She disappeared from our home when she was only 18, after an argument with our father. He was strict, controlling. She wanted freedom. He wanted obedience. One day she packed her things and vanished. We searched, we tried, but eventually the family buried her name. Her voice cracked again. I never did. Mira sat down across from her, stunned. The diner had faded away. The clinking plates, the distant hiss of bacon, all gone. Just two women, bound by a necklace neither one had fully understood until now. So you're saying, Mira started, that you're my aunt? Sylvia nodded. And you are the only family I have left. The silence stretched long between them. Finally, Mira exhaled, overwhelmed. I need some air. Sylvia stood too. Please, let me walk with you. And together, without another word, the lady in red and the girl with the locket stepped out into the cold morning air, not as strangers, but as something painfully more complicated. They walked in silence along the narrow sidewalk behind the diner, past dumpsters and cracked pavement, where the air smelled faintly of old grease and rain. But to Sylvia, it might as well have been the steps of a cathedral. Every time she looked at the young woman beside her, she saw echoes, flickers, ghosts, the angle of her jaw, the small twitch in her brow when she was thinking. All of it, Lana, her sister, her runaway, her regret. Mira kept her arms wrapped tightly around herself, the wind tugging at her apron strings, her thoughts louder than any traffic. You really think she was Lana Whitmore? She asked finally, voice tight. Not just a coincidence? Sylvia didn't answer right away. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then turned the screen to Mira. It was an old photo, grainy, faded, but unmistakable. Two girls sitting on a stone wall, one with golden hair tucked behind her ears, laughing. The other, younger, dark curls, serious eyes, a locket around her neck. That's us, Sylvia said softly. She wore that necklace every day until the day she vanished. Mira stared. She didn't need time to recognize the face in the photo. It was the same one that looked back at her every morning in the mirror, only softer, younger, full of fire. My mom always seemed sad, like she was homesick but wouldn't say where home was. Mira ran a hand through her hair. She used to hum this song at night, like a lullaby. I never knew where it came from. Sylvia closed her eyes. She used to hum that same tune when she was scared. It was our mother's lullaby too. A tremble passed through her hands. You have no idea how many times I dreamed of hearing her name again. Lana. Just Lana. It's been locked in my throat for 30 years. Her voice cracked. And then you said it, just like that. In a dusty little diner over burnt coffee, my world cracked open. Mira leaned against the side of the building, her head swirling with questions that didn't have form yet. Why didn't she come back? If she had a sister who loved her, why did she disappear completely? Sylvia sighed. Because our father was cruel, powerful, but cruel. When she left, he told the world she was a disgrace. He cut her out of the will, out of the history books. I tried to find her, but I was young, controlled. I didn't have the power then. By the time I inherited anything, she was gone. No trace, no address, just silence. Mira looked down. She didn't talk about any of this. She worked cleaning houses, always took the night shifts. We moved a lot. She cried sometimes when she thought I was asleep. Her voice grew quiet. Now I know why. Sylvia touched her shoulder gently. Mira, I know this is a lot. I don't expect anything from you. but I do want you to know that you have a family, one that didn't abandon you." Mira looked at her, raw emotion flickering behind her eyes. "But where were you when she needed that family?" Sylvia froze. The words struck like ice. "I'm sorry," Mira said quickly. "That wasn't fair." "No," Sylvia replied, voice low. "It was fair. I was silent when I should have screamed. I was scared when I should have chased her. But I'm here now, and I want to make things right. Not with guilt, with truth and time, if you'll let me." They stood there a long time. 2 generations divided by pain, bound by blood, and unsure of what to do with either. But somewhere deep in Mira's chest, beneath the fear, the doubts, the memories of scraping by, something cracked. Not brokenness, something soft, something open. And she whispered, just loud enough for the wind to carry, "Okay, we can talk." Sylvia nodded slowly, wiping the corner of her eye. "Then let's begin." That evening, Mira stood inside Sylvia's penthouse for the first time. It was everything she'd never known. Glass chandeliers, velvet armchairs, floors so polished she could see her reflection. But what stunned her more than the wealth was the quiet reverence that Sylvia showed as she led her into a small room near the study. The door creaked open to reveal a space untouched by time. "This was Lana's room," Sylvia said, her voice barely above a breath. Dust coated the shelves, but the books were still there. Dog-eared romance novels, old sketch pads, a cracked porcelain jewelry box. Mira stepped in slowly, running her fingers across the spines. It felt like trespassing in a life she never got to know, but it also felt right. "She used to sit by this window and draw people walking by," Sylvia added. "She always said the city was loud but full of stories." Mira found a small notebook on the nightstand. Inside, scribbled lyrics, torn song pages, doodles of a necklace she recognized. Her throat tightened. She kept everything. Sylvia sat down on the edge of the bed. When she left, Father was furious. He locked this room and forbade anyone from speaking her name, but I couldn't let go. I used to sneak in here when no one was home, just to sit, just to breathe where she had. Mira listened in silence. Her heart felt heavier and lighter at the same time. "Why didn't she ever tell me any of this?" "Because she wanted to protect you," Sylvia said. "She must have known you'd be safer away from our family's shadow." She reached for a small photo frame on the dresser and handed it to Mira. Inside, a young Lana smiled beside Sylvia, both arms around each other, hair windswept, eyes full of mischief. "She loved you, Mira. That much is certain. And maybe, just maybe, she hoped one day you'd find your way back." Mira stared at the photo, her fingers trembling. "She never smiled like that with me, not after she got sick. It was like something had gone missing inside her." Sylvia looked at her. "It did. It was us." The next hour unfolded in hushed voices and gentle memories. Sylvia told her stories, how Lana used to prank the butlers, how she once painted the garden fountain blue just to make a point, how she sang even when no one listened. Mira, in return, told her about cold winters with broken heaters, canned soup dinners, and the time her mother sold her coat just to buy Mira a second-hand textbook. "She gave everything for me," Mira whispered, "and still, she died alone." Sylvia's hand reached out and held hers. "Not alone anymore. You're her echo, her proof, and now, her legacy." Mira blinked, eyes glassy. "I wish she could see this, hear you say that." "Maybe," Sylvia said gently, "she already does." They sat there until the sky turned orange behind the high-rise windows, surrounded by whispers from the past, quietly rebuilding a family that fate had broken but blood refused to forget. The next morning, Sylvia stood quietly in front of the large window in her study, a steaming cup of tea in one hand and a storm of thoughts in the other. The city stretched out beneath her, but her mind was anchored to a single thread: proof. Mira had slept in the guest room after a long, exhausting evening, filled with stories and tears, and though every inch of Sylvia's soul already believed what her heart screamed, this girl was family. She also knew the world required more than feelings. It required facts. And so, without telling Mira, she called Dr. Patel. Dr. Patel was discreet. He had handled the estate's private affairs for decades, a man who understood the weight of silence. A single strand of Mira's hair, collected carefully from her sweater, was all it took. "We'll test it against your DNA," he said gently. "We'll know in 48 hours. Sylvia nodded, though her heart was already racing ahead of the science. Those 2 days passed like years. Mira didn't ask questions. She was too overwhelmed to think about the future, too afraid to get her hopes entangled with dreams. She spent most of her time in Lana's old room, curled up with the sketchbooks, reading old notes in the margins of romance novels, tracing the fading ink of her mother's handwriting. On the second evening, as the rain returned to the city in sheets of glass, Sylvia received the call. Dr. Patel's voice was calm, clinical. "There's no doubt," he said. "Mira Rivers shares a 998% DNA match with you. She is your biological niece, the daughter of Lana Whitmore." Sylvia didn't respond. She simply sat down on the edge of her armchair and let her tears fall. Soft, steady, not from doubt, but from the release of something that had been buried for too long, hope. When she told Mira, the girl just stared at her. "You tested me?" she asked, her tone unreadable. "I needed to know," Sylvia admitted. "Not because I doubted you, but because I knew the world would." Mira looked down, silent. Sylvia crossed the room slowly. "Mira, I didn't do this to trap you, or to prove ownership. I did it so I could fight for you if ever I needed to. You're part of this family, whether you want the name or not. And I want to give you what was taken from your mother." Mira looked up then, eyes rimmed red. "What was taken?" "Her dignity," Sylvia said. "Her home, her right to belong." She paused. She should have been celebrated. Instead, she was erased. I can't undo that for her, but I can make sure no one erases you. Mira turned toward the window, her voice small. "Do I have to become someone else to accept this? A Whitmore?" Sylvia smiled, tears in her eyes. "No, sweetheart. You just have to remain Mira. That's the girl I've waited decades to find." And with that, something shifted. A weight Mira hadn't realized she carried slowly lifted. Her fingers found the old locket around her neck and held it gently. For the first time, the chain didn't feel like a relic. It felt like a bridge. For days after the DNA results, Mira avoided the main rooms of the penthouse. She didn't ask for breakfast. She didn't wander the halls. She stayed mostly in Lana's room, the only space that felt real, like it belonged to someone who knew how to survive with less. Sylvia noticed, of course. She knocked on the door each morning, brought tea, left small notes. "Thinking of you, no pressure, just love. Whenever you're ready." But Mira never responded. She wasn't angry, at least not in the way that made people slam doors or yell. No, she was something worse. She was quiet. On the fourth morning, Sylvia found her by the rooftop garden, sitting on a bench with her arms wrapped around herself. The skyline stretched behind her, a kingdom she never asked to rule. "You look like your mother when she used to watch sunsets," Sylvia said gently. Mira didn't look up. She used to say sunsets were proof that some endings are beautiful. Sylvia sat beside her. She was right. For a moment, they said nothing. Then Mira broke the silence, her voice tight. "I've been thinking about leaving." Sylvia froze. "Leaving?" Mira nodded. "I appreciate everything. The kindness, the stories, even the DNA test. But this world, it's not mine. I don't belong in marble halls. I'm not someone who gets driven in town cars or wears designer coats. I clean tables. I split tips. I budget ramen noodles for the week. This isn't just another city to me. It's a survival map I memorized by heart. And now," she looked down, "now I feel like a guest in my own skin." Sylvia's chest ached. "Mira, this doesn't have to change who you are. You can still be the same girl. This is just a door. One your mother never got to walk through. You're not obligated to walk through it either. But I want you to know, it's open, wide open." Mira finally met her eyes. "What if I don't want your money, your name? What if I just want peace?" Sylvia didn't hesitate. "Then I'll give you peace. No strings, no expectations. I didn't bring you here to turn you into someone else. I brought you here because I missed my sister every day for 30 years, and when I look at you, I see the girl I lost, and the woman she gave the world before she died." Mira's throat tightened. "So, you're not trying to buy me?" "No, darling," Sylvia whispered, eyes glistening. "I'm trying to earn you." Silence. Then something unspoken passed between them. Not agreement, not forgiveness, but a beginning. Mira stood slowly. "I'm going to take a walk, alone." Sylvia nodded, hiding her heartbreak. "Of course." Mira left without another word. But what Sylvia didn't know, what Mira didn't say, was that she wasn't walking away. She was walking towards something she needed more than anything: clarity. And when she returned that evening, hair windswept, cheeks pink from the cold, she carried not bags or apologies, but a tiny flower plucked from a public garden. She placed it in a teacup on Sylvia's kitchen counter and whispered, "One day at a time." Sylvia smiled through quiet tears. Sometimes grace doesn't come with trumpets. Sometimes it enters on sore feet, carrying nothing but a flower and a whisper of hope. It was Mira who asked first, quietly, almost in passing, while stirring a cup of tea in the oversized Langston kitchen. "Do you remember where she grew up? My mother, I mean." Sylvia's hand paused midair. "Yes," she said slowly. "Why?" Mira glanced up, eyes soft but certain. "I want to see it. The house, the neighborhood, where she was, before everything changed." Sylvia hesitated, then nodded. "We'll go tomorrow." And the next morning, they drove 3 hours north of the city in a sleek black car with tinted windows and no security detail. Just 2 women, 1 map, and a lifetime of unsaid things. The air outside was crisp, autumn slicing gently through the trees. The closer they got, the quieter they both became. The house stood just where Sylvia remembered it. White shutters, faded green trim, a wrought iron gate with ivy growing stubbornly through the cracks. The paint was peeling, the porch creaked, but the soul of it, somehow, remained. "This was our home," Sylvia whispered. Lana's bedroom was the second window from the left. She used to write little poems on the glass with her breath. Mira stood still, taking it all in. The sidewalk where Lana once skipped rope, the tree she used to climb, the swing set now rusted in the backyard. Each corner echoed something Mira never got to hear as a child, but now felt deep in her bones. They walked around the side of the house, where Sylvia gently pushed open a gate that led into what used to be the garden. It was overgrown now, wild and tangled, but the stone path was still visible beneath the weeds. Mira knelt and traced a carved name hidden under moss. It read, "Lana W., age 9. Her hand trembled. "She really lived here," she whispered. "She was a little girl, just like me once." Sylvia sat on the stone bench nearby. "We used to sit here after school. She'd tell me stories about running away to Paris or becoming a painter. She hated being told what to do, but she loved being listened to." Mira smiled faintly. "I think I got that from her." "No doubt," Sylvia chuckled. Then her smile faded. "I should have done more. I should have run with her, or found her, or—" "You were a child too," Mira interrupted gently. "Don't carry guilt that doesn't belong to you." Sylvia blinked, surprised by the grace. Mira stood, walked over, and sat beside her. She looked out over the forgotten garden and let her fingers brush against the bench. "She never told me any of this, not even once, but I think she remembered it every time she held me close." Her voice dropped. "She gave me all the love she couldn't keep for herself." Sylvia looked at her niece, the niece she never knew existed until fate knocked on a diner door and reached for her hand. "You brought her back to me," she said softly, "just by being here." Mira turned, her face open now, her guard finally lowered. "And you brought her forward," she replied, "by remembering." There, in the place where everything once broke, something else quietly mended. Not with fireworks, not with dramatic declarations, just a hand held tightly, and the kind of silence that says, "We are still here." When they finally stood to leave, Mira turned one last time to the house, then touched the locket around her neck. "I think she forgives us," she whispered. Sylvia nodded, her eyes wet. "And I think she's proud." 6 months later, the locket that had once hung silently against Mira's chest now gleamed under the soft lights of a glass display at the grand opening of the Lana Whitmore Center for Hope. The engraved words on the plaque below it read, "In memory of a woman who was forgotten by many, but never stopped loving quietly." Dozens of guests in elegant gowns and tailored suits moved through the atrium of the new youth center. Journalists, philanthropists, city officials. But all eyes kept drifting back to the woman standing beside the dedication wall. Mira. She wore a simple black dress and no jewelry except the silver locket, now polished, now open, and filled with 2 tiny photos, one of her mother and one of Sylvia and her as children. In her hands, she held a folded speech. But when she stepped up to the podium, she didn't open it. She looked out into the crowd, at Sylvia sitting in the front row with tears already forming, and smiled. "6 months ago," she began, "I was just a waitress with a necklace I didn't understand. My mother never told me much. She said the past was dangerous. That silence kept us safe. But silence also keeps us separated from truth, from family, from healing." She paused, her voice steady. The day a woman in red stepped into my diner and froze at the sight of this locket, my life began to unfold in ways I never imagined. I didn't gain a fortune. I gained something better: context, connection, and closure. She looked down, fingers brushing the locket. This center is not built with marble or gold. It's built from all the things my mother lost, and all the things I reclaimed in her name. It's built for the girls who feel invisible, for the boys who think family is a myth, for the ones who, like me, thought legacy only belonged to the powerful. She turned towards Sylvia. This is for you, Mom, and for the sister who never stopped looking. Applause thundered through the room, but Mira didn't cry. Not because she wasn't overwhelmed, but because this time, she didn't need to. Her story had already spoken for her. Later that night, after the crowds had left and the lights dimmed, Sylvia joined Mira on a bench beneath the tree planted in the courtyard's courtyard. She would have loved this, Sylvia said. The flowers, the books, the laughter. Mira nodded. And the music. In the background, a local choir sang a soft tune. A lullaby Sylvia recognized immediately, the same one Lana used to hum. "Do you think she's proud of me?" Mira asked quietly. Sylvia turned to her, her voice thick with emotion. "She's more than proud. She's at peace and she's home." Mira looked up at the sky, the stars above reflecting in her eyes. Then she leaned her head gently on Sylvia's shoulder. They sat like that for a long time, no longer strangers, no longer searching, just two pieces of a family finally made whole. The locket around Mira's neck glinted one last time in the moonlight, not as a relic of what was lost, but as a promise of everything they'd built, and everything still to come. They say wealth is measured in gold, but tonight it was measured in something far more fragile: a necklace, a name, and a truth that was almost lost forever. Mira didn't ask for a family. She didn't beg for a legacy, but she honored the mother who gave everything, and inspired a world that had forgotten how to feel. Sylvia didn't just find her niece, she found redemption. And that tiny silver locket, it didn't just unlock the past, it opened a future no one could have predicted. So, the next time you see someone quiet, someone ordinary, don't look away. Because behind the simplest soul might live the story that changes everything.